Well, the US president immediately went after Russia during his first State of the Union address, tearing into the Russian president, Vladimir Putin, for his, quote, menacing ways and tyranny, and saying when dictators are not held accountable, they cause even more chaos. Joe Biden stressing the importance of America's strong partnerships with key allies like NATO and the EU, who have taken a united stance against the Russian invasion. Now, he added that their collective sanctions have left Russia's economy reeling, and President Putin has never been more isolated.
Putin's latest attack on Ukraine was premeditated and totally unprovoked. He rejected repeated efforts at diplomacy. He thought the West and NATO wouldn't respond. He thought he could divide us at home, in this chamber, in this nation. He thought he could divide us in Europe as well. But Putin was wrong. We are ready. We are united, and that's what we did. We stayed united.
Now, during his address, President Biden announced a ban on Russian aircraft in U.S. airspace and a promise to go after Russian oligarchs and their, quote, ill-begotten gains. He also praised the grit of the Ukrainian people and said the Russian president met a wall of strength he never imagined. But those people, of course, continue to suffer. Minutes ago, we got word that 2 large explosions overnight have jolted Kharkiv, which is Ukraine's second largest city, very close to the Russian border, and you can see them there lighting up the sky. The country's public broadcaster reports that fighting between the Russian and Ukrainian militaries broke out overnight, but it is not clear if those blasts are related to that fighting. Meanwhile, the United Nations estimates at least 136 civilians have been killed since Thursday, but says the true death toll is undoubtedly higher than that. Now, these images posted online show the fiery rubble after a strike outside Kiev tore through several apartment blocks. The capital still bracing for a major assault. Further south, the Russian military appears to have taken at least part of the city of Kherson. Newly obtained images show their tanks and trucks parked in a main square. This coming as the number of people fleeing the invasion approaches 700,000 now, according to the UN, which warns that this conflict could create Europe's largest refugee crisis this century. Let's bring in CNN senior White House correspondent Phil Mattingly, who's live in Washington. Good to see you, Phil. The State of the Union, it's normally about sort of, connecting with the American public for a president, but Biden had a lot of audiences for this year's speech and sent messages to Putin, Zelensky, as well as U.S. allies. How well did he fill those buckets?
Look, Michael, when you go back to when President Biden first started thinking through what he wanted to say in his first State of the Union, a critical global geopolitical crisis was not anywhere near the top 10, maybe 15, maybe 20 of the issues that he wanted to focus on. And yet that is the reality of this moment. The first 12 minutes of the speech, a 60-minute speech, all about Ukraine, all about this moment that they are in. I think when you talk to White House officials leading up to this speech, they made the same point you kind of laid out there. They wanted to deliver a direct message to Vladimir Putin. They wanted to deliver a direct message to the Ukrainian people. They wanted to explain to the American people why this is such an essential moment in time, why the U.S. needs to lead. But I think one thing you saw that I thought kind of stood out more than anything else. Yes, this is about Ukraine. Yes, this is about Russia's actions as it relates to Ukraine. But it's bigger than that, the president made very clear. This is an existential moment where the West, the Western alliances, needed to come together, needed to unify, because this is about kind of the stakes for democracy. The president often looks at things through that lens. Democracies versus autocracies has been a theme that I've heard repeatedly over the course of the last 13 or 14 months. But this was about the ability to kind of shake loose, almost wake up those Western alliances that have been disjointed, have been disparate at various points over the course of the last several years, particularly under his predecessor, and explain why there's such value to those relationships. And in that lens, making clear that what we've seen over the course of the last 72 hours, last 4 days, particularly when it comes to the sanctions regime, is a level of unity that simply hasn't existed over the course of the last 4 or 5 years. And while there will be no U.S. troops on the ground in Ukraine, that unity, those sanctions, that willingness to rally not just America, not just Ukrainians, but really the entire Western world is critical at this moment, Michael.
Indeed. Thanks for the wrap-up there, Phil. Phil Mattingly live in Washington.